All right. Well, good afternoon. Great to see so many people here in person. We have quite a few people online as well. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Nick Place. I have the honor of serving as the dean and the director here in the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. And it's truly my honor to welcome you all to our 2024 D.W. Brooks lecture. This lecture and its associated faculty awards honor excellence and encourage innovative thought that elevates agriculture and the environment here at the University of Georgia and around the world. We thank you for joining us from near as well as far. We'd like to extend a special thank you to our D.W. Brooks named professors in attendance. And let's see, do we have any, Regina, before I call them out? Okay, well, I won't bother calling them out then, but anyway, we have a number of those, and I would also just say that it's Dr. Ignacy Mitzval, Dr. Steve Stice, and Dr. Peggy Ozias Aiken. So today we look forward to what promises to be a very thought-provoking lecture as we continue to carry on the legacy of D.W. Brooks, a man who laid the foundation for the work that a lot of us do today. The founder of Gold Kist Incorporated, Cotton States Mutual Insurance Company, Brooks dedicated his life to the improvement of agriculture, the support of agriculture industry, as well as the health of the environment. Throughout his life, he advised 7 U.S. presidents on policy and trade issues. He was the first inductee into the University of Georgia Agricultural Hall of Fame and was named Progressive Farmers Man of the Year in Agriculture in the South. In addition to these honors, D.W. Brooks has the distinction of being both the youngest and the oldest faculty member in the college. This is what I think is so cool. He began his teaching career with the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences at 19 years of age, and ultimately returned to teaching after a long, productive career in agriculture. And he taught in the college classroom until his passing at age 97. How many of you are ready to sign up for something like that? That's pretty cool. So I'd like to now share a video with you about Brooks's life and legacy.
The whole idea in the farmer was that I could bring them all up. And I wanted to get them to where they were the greatest producers and the highest income group. I wanted to take them from the bottom to the top if I could.
He would say, never forget who causes things to happen. The workers in the field who harvest the crops, who plant the crops.
I grew up understanding that farmers were the absolute rock bottom supporters of our culture.
One of the stories that really had a great impact on him was what he would tell about his mother back when he was growing up on the farm in Georgia, here, a cotton farm. And his mother would always said, you don't feed people because they're good or feed them because they're bad. You feed people because they're hungry. He saw the great need for something to happen in agriculture. He was a faculty member at the University of Georgia, and admittedly, I think he left that against the better wishes of the Dean of Agriculture at the university and his own father to try to do something to benefit the farmers of Georgia.
The average money that crossed a farmer's hand in a year was $72. He had been to Denmark early in his life and had seen the co-ops there, and he came back and started what was Cotton Producers, which became Gold Kist.
The purpose of Gold Kist, as Mr. Brooks often articulated it, was to improve the economic well-being of family farmers in the areas it served. Gold Kist was one of the first companies that had poultry servicemen whose total function was to go around from farm to farm and help the producers do a better job at what they were doing.
He was absolutely committed to the fact that profits were to be shared, and that's how it happened in a co-op.
Gold Kist's legacy in Georgia is that many farm families achieved a much higher standard of living, and their sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters continue to enjoy that benefit today through the poultry business. Mr. Brooks influenced agriculture policy very directly. Because Goldkist was the largest agribusiness in the Southeast, he knew presidents and secretaries of agriculture, secretaries of commerce, other cabinet members.
And he served on boards for many presidents, for 7 presidents.
One of the most compelling speeches I heard President Carter make was at Mr. Brooks's 85th birthday celebration at Goldkist. He gave him the credit that he deserved for the leadership that he had provided to Goldkist, to Emory, to the Methodist Church, and to agribusiness in the Southeast.
He loved the university, and that was the only way it was ever referred to in our house. It was the university. When he was in his 90s, he was invited back to give lectures in the School of Agriculture. He loved being able to brag that he had been the youngest professor and now the oldest. One of the things that is so nice about the D.W. Brooks Lecture is that it is an ongoing educational commitment.
I think the importance of the Brooks Lecture today is that it brings the leading thinkers, the leading speakers, the thought leaders to the campus so that young people can see that there are great opportunities in agriculture, agribusiness, agricultural economics, and the environment associated with agricultural activities.
He would be absolutely thrilled about, and he was thrilled about it during his lifetime when he could go. That was one of the highlights of the year.
Today the South is booming, it's doing well, and it's up there even now, and we're doing quite well. So we have great institutions now in the South, and they're training lots of wonderful people, and they're building the South, and that's the way you do it. And so I think the future of the South looks better to me every day.
Okay, so thank you. As you can see, Dr. Brooks had a tremendous impact on agriculture at large, as well as the University of Georgia, and specifically our College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. So with that, we'd like to take a brief moment to introduce to you the 2024 winners of our D.W. Brooks Faculty Awards for Excellence. And this is the college's top honor for our faculty. Award winners, please stand when your name is called and remain standing until all winners have been recognized. And audience members, I'd ask that you hold your applause until all have been recognized. So the 2024 D.W. Brooks Award for Excellence in Extension goes to Dr. Brian Fairchild, who's a professor and extension poultry scientist in the Department of Poultry Sciences. The 2024 D.W. Brooks Award for Excellence in Diversity goes to Dr. Olenka Olakusi, an associate professor in the Department of Poultry Sciences. I hope I did better on your name that time. The 2024 D.W. Brooks Award for Excellence in International Agriculture and Environmental Sciences goes to Dr. Ramesh Savara, and he's professor in the Department of Poultry Sciences also. The 2024 D.W. Brooks Award for Excellence in Public Service Extension goes to Tucker Price, Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent and Extension Coordinator in Cook County. The 2024 D.W. Brooks Award for Excellence in Research goes to Dr. Daniela Lorenko, Associate Professor in the Department of Animal and Dairy Sciences. And then also the 2024 D.W. Brooks Award for Excellence in Teaching goes to Dr. Robert Dove, Professor and State Swine Specialist in the Department of Animal and Dairy Sciences. We're so very grateful for all of you for your tremendous work on behalf of the college. And please join me in congratulating these award winners. All right, so now it's my distinct honor to introduce you to our guest speaker and my good friend, Krista Harden. Krista, a former Georgia 4-H'er, grew up on a farm, and Camilla and studied journalism here at the University of Georgia before heading to Washington, D.C. to work in the public policy sector. She has always had a deep passion for agriculture policy, and that is clear in all that she has accomplished in her career. Among other roles, Krista served as Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture and was a leader in implementing the 2014 Farm Bill. I joked with her earlier we could use some help now in getting that next Farm Bill done, but I digress. From Capitol Hill to her current position as President and CEO of the U.S. Dairy Export Council, she has been a strong advocate for agriculture. And on top of that, she serves as the president of the National 4-H Council, a testament to her deep dedication to 4-H. Krista has also served on our Dean's Advisory Council for the past 3 years, and I'm really glad to say that she's been a tremendous advocate for the college in that role, so thank you very much. And it's truly a pleasure and honor to be able to host her as our 2024 D.W. Brooks Lecture Speaker. We are grateful that Krista is here with us today to share her talk entitled Georgia's Roots, Global Impact, a journey working with people, industry, and nations on challenges to nourishing the world. Please join me in welcoming Krista Harden.
Thank you, Dean. That was nice. Thank you for the water. Thank you for everything. It's a little scary, Dean. They're putting me in charge of driving today. And I'm going to start my timer, and it works. Thank you, Dean. I have to tell a little bit of story on the Dean. I was part of the industry advisory group that interviewed candidates for the Dean when Dean Place was hired. So there were a number of great names, very qualified people from all over the country, that we went through this process. And I immediately, when I saw his name, where he was, I thought, he's at Florida. That ain't gonna work. My bias, I have to admit, my SEC bias kicked in immediately. So we go through a number of conversations, I would say, with the candidates. It wasn't really a formal interview, but conversations. And darn it, Dean Place kept kind of rising to the top. And I was thinking, I kind of like this guy. He may actually be okay. Maybe it was because he was from Pennsylvania and had a little dairy background. I don't know Dean Place, but we didn't make the official decision, obviously, as industry, but we did weigh in, and Dean Place was certainly my top choice. So we did good. So thank you for your leadership, your partnership, but most of all, your friendship. It's been great to get to know you. And I was so humbled and honored when you and the committee asked me to come here today. And even more so when I watched that wonderful reminder of what the name of this lecture series stands for and who it stands for. So thank you again, Dean. I'll do you proud, I hope. I want to make sure that I introduce important people to me today. My husband, Charles Hatcher, is here. Who also grew up in South Georgia, was a member of Congress, done all other kind of sorts of things, but he's been out long enough not to take any blame or credit for what's happening now. A granddaughter, Ansley Hatcher, who is a student here. She went to undergrad and she's getting her master's. I told her I was going to embarrass her. She's doing an internship at USDA. Yay. She didn't go to the ag school, but I keep working on her. So I'm glad that she could be here today. And online, not in the room, is my very sweet mama and Camilla. She couldn't be here. She had surgery recently and couldn't thought of the 4-hour drive, but I know that she's sending me all her well wishes. And my baby sister, which she'll be mad I said that, is in Valdosta, where she works for the state of Georgia doing education. They have been with me clearly through everything, and I just am so honored and proud of them. And sorry they can't be in person, but they're sending me great vibes. And my sweet daddy, who died in March. Peanut farmer, the best of the best daddies, a girl daddy before there was such a thing. Just the best person. I know he is somewhere taking credit for everything I've ever accomplished. He always said he taught me everything. I miss him so much, and I wish I could see him, but I know he's with me. So, and Jerry Brown. Jerry, I can't forget Jerry. Jerry works with me in Washington with the U.S. Dairy Export Council. He's on campus for the first time, and I said, did we make a dog out of you yet? And he said, yes. I'm his boss, so he has to say yes. All right. That's me in the peanut field at home. I've got these pictures, and it's going to help me kind of capture, I hope, and tell the story really about my journey. Like many of the students, in this room and those who have much further along in your careers, it all starts somewhere. And for me, it's certainly those deep, deep roots in Georgia. And we'll talk about some of the things that I've been through, the challenges, the opportunities, how that's helped shape a career and really make the person that you are. Hopefully some of the students will learn something. It's always good to be home. I wish that was my front porch. I did get some cheese straws today as a gift, so I'll be snacking on those, made me feel right at home. But, food is what brings people together. It's hard to argue with people if you're enjoying good food. Maybe some sweet tea, some fried okra, fried chicken, the things that my mama does so good. I think if we could have more conversations around a dinner table, a supper table, I think we would kind of solve our problems. But it's good to be here, to be able to feel right at home. Y'all should understand my accent, right? Nobody's saying where you're from when I come here. Most places they do. It all started on that dirt road. That's not just some stock picture. That's my road, Horseshoe Road, where I grew up. My mama grew up on that road as well. Our farm was there. We moved back with my grandmother when I was 6 or 7 years old. And that, when I think about home, even though I don't live there now, and even mama and daddy built a house on another part of the farm, it's that road. A picture of that is behind my desk, and it has been for many, 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 many years. So if I ever get too big for my britches or forget where I am from or the lessons of my parents and my family, it doesn't take long just to turn my chair around and see that road. I think a lot of us have these kind of connections to home and what they mean and those foundational lessons that we learned. And I tell all the young people in the audience, and I know there's students here, don't forget that. Don't forget who you are. You can always know where you're going and figure it out, but if you don't understand where you came from, it's going to be a bumpy road. I'm trying to learn how to do all these things, Jerry. Am I getting it right? You got to click twice. On some of it's a lot of animation. I'm not great at this. Georgia roots. I think you have to have strong roots. And I think that's what I got at home. A lot of you recognize our peanuts. I remember Jerry and I were putting this together. He said, well, people know what that is. I'm like, Jerry, we're going to Georgia. If they don't recognize peanuts, something is bad wrong. But again, that to me is who has defined who I am and helped me really be prepared for some of the tough decisions, the global decisions, the decisions working on policy in Washington, trying to find compromise, trying to figure things out, and also narrowing down who I wanted to be and what I wanted to focus on. I did not go to the ag school, did not come here. When I was growing up, agriculture was in a very, very tough time. And my family was like, do anything but agriculture, basically. There were almost no girls in the ag school in those days. It didn't have environmental sciences. It was just ag school and ag hill. So I went to the journalism school to really think about how to communicate, how to share. I wanted to be a sportscaster at one point, I have to admit that, and realized that I did not have the voice or the face for it. But I learned so much here. I learned about things through my sorority. I was an 80 Pi for any of those who know the 80 Pi house on Millage. I had a small church here, Oconee Street United Methodist Church, where I stayed grounded to who I was, back to that faith, land, and family. That helped me, just gave me more ties to home, but yet being 4 hours away. It was the things that helped nurture me. And certainly being on campus. I was here when we won the first national championship. I will date myself, but it was a heck of a good time to be in Athens. It was wonderful, but so many lessons and so many people. So I say to you students, make sure you keep that network fresh. Make sure your professors remember you, you remember them, and also that you remember these lessons. The time goes by so fast. It's a blink and it's over. And you want to leave, you want to go, you want to grow, you want to get out of here. But it's something about those arches, it's something about here in school that's going to continue to have a hold on you. And frankly, that's a good thing. So I thank the university, I think for everything that it's done for me, provided for me. And that's why it's always so good to come home. Not just when we're winning football games, that does help. Not when I'm getting to speak in front of audiences, but there's something about being here and being with the professors, being with academic leaders, and being with the students where you get energy. It's just so magnificent. There I have a lot of people to recognize who have influenced my life. The names I'm not going to read there, but a lot of them you should recognize. People who have taken a special interest in me. There's presidents, there's secretaries, there's people's names you never, ever have heard before, but who have cared about me, nurtured me, taught me, were there when I made mistakes, and they are who lifted me up when I was down. The last one I'll say is my great Uncle Harry. Uncle Harry was probably the grandfather that I really didn't have. Both my grandfathers died when I was fairly young. This is on my mama's side. He was just a rock solid person, didn't have to say a lot. His look could tell you whether he was happy or unhappy with you. I think we all have folks like that in our lives. But he taught me so much about land and the connection to land, to where you don't know where it starts and you end, or vice versa. Uncle Harry was just so critical in my early years of trying to figure out what kind of person I wanted to be and what mattered to me. So he's not here. He's been long, long gone. I hear his voice. I hear his laugh. I see his smile. He's the person when I traveled and he asked me questions about where I went, he stopped to listen to the answers. Most folks don't do that. Most folks don't care as much as somebody like Uncle Harry. I say this to our young people, make sure that your name's on this list, that you remember them and you remember what they taught you and what they gave you. Certainly in the times of celebration when you're doing good, but more importantly, when you're not. There's only one female's name on there, if you notice that, Amy Hammer. She would be tickled, Jerry, that I did this. She has nothing to do with agriculture. She was in the oil and gas industry. When I was on Capitol Hill as a young staffer and thinking about working in agriculture, working on the ag committee, what am I going to do next? Who are going to be my mentors? There just weren't really many women. There were no folks I could look up to say, I want to be like her. I want her job. And that's what you kind of need. There were no groundswell of mentors who said, you can do this, Crystal, I'll help you with that. I had peers who were just as hungry as I was for that next opportunity. But I didn't have mentors. But there was a group of women led by Amy who worked in the oil and gas industry, another very male-dominated industry, who saw something in me as a very young junior staffer on Capitol Hill. I went 2 weeks after graduation from UGA to Washington. And Amy said, this is what you got to do. They got me in an investment club, learned how to play golf. I never was very good, but I played at it. This group of women were there to help guide me, to help me remember I could be who I was. I didn't have to be one of the good old boys. I never was going to be. I could be okay, and I could find my way as a female, even in the industry that really wasn't sure they wanted me to be a leader. But Amy opened those doors. And when I went through confirmation to be deputy secretary, which not for the faint-hearted, by the way, to go through that, I did it twice. The 4 of the 5 women who had been part of that group, who had cared for me, nurtured me, taught me, came to my hearing. One was deceased. They're still part of my life. That's what mentors do. That's how they give. That's how they influence your life, not just at one stage, but for all of it. The other names, some of them you recognize, some of them you don't. They're all special to me. I'll highlight another one, Norman Borlaug. Anybody here ever heard of him? Yes, I see some names. I see some waving and folks saying yes. He is a man who we all owe and in debt to in agriculture and the Green Revolution. Won the Pulitzer Prize, unusual in agriculture for somebody to get that, for he said, like Mr. Brooks, he understood about feeding and caring for people, and that modern agriculture, modern science was going to do it. We had to change, and it had to be available for everyone. I think about Mr. Borlaug so many times. His statue now is in the U.S. Capitol. I will put it there, which is and went to that unveiling, so meaningful for us to be able to recognize a great giant in agriculture in the U.S. Capitol. We all owe him a debt for what he did for science, for food research, and for able to push the envelope, challenge us as a world about feeding people. Now, here's the one, Jerry, that Jerry made me sure I put in here. It's me and 4-H. And I know you can't see my little speck of green here, but it's here. It's my alumni pin. When I think about influences in my life, besides the people, the individuals, I think about the organization that shaped me and helped me. It's 4-H. And I see some green throughout this room. I met with 4-H students earlier today. No other organization from the time I was 10 years old, and I think I might have even been 9 when I started, but you're supposed to be 10, so I think I fudged on my application. No other group has made a more profound impact on who I am. For a lot of reasons. It's not just one. For so many reasons. One is just exposure to something bigger than me, to adults outside of my family who were leaders and guiders. Going to Rock Eagle. Is there not a cooler place in the world where you can have more fun, where you can learn, meet kids from all over the state? But also, back in the day, we don't do it anymore, there was horse camp in Athens where you brought your own horse. And the Coliseum and the surrounding area with the barns and the stables, and we rode horses every day and did classes in the Coliseum. And we stayed in the boys' dorms, like Church Hall and some of those over there, Boggs maybe, were the places we stayed. And I was like, 12 maybe. First time really away from home. I was so homesick at first. And by the end of it, I was already signing up for the next summer. But one of the things I remember and I told some folks this today, I probably shouldn't tell it, but I will. My mama will be laughing hard. I was so modest, I still kind of am. And the boys' dorm, they just had this shower with nozzles coming out. And so everybody had to shower together. I was so modest, I would not get in there with the other girls. So I didn't bathe. At a horse camp, where you're riding horses and you're cleaning out stalls and it's not a clean kind of camp. It's not swimming camp, I'll tell you that. There were no pools. I think about Wednesday or Thursday of that week, my roommate, Sally McLaughlin, who I did not know before, she had come before and she was just a dear older kind of guidance She kind of put me under her wings, made sure I met people, I knew what to do. And, even when I was homesick, she changed the subject. She finally just said, Krista, you have got to bathe. And so I know that there was reasons for that. She said, I will go stand at the door if you'll go shower. You can go at 2 a.m., it doesn't matter, but you gotta wash. So many just funny experiences. I also showed steers. My sister and I showed steers. I did leadership. I did a number of different things in 4-H, and it created a network for me that's everlasting. The day I left USDA as a public servant, the 4-H CEO called me and said, will you join our board? It was the first decision I really had to make when I was leaving government. And of course, the answer is yes. And I served on council, and then I was asked to be vice council, and they said, that didn't mean you're going to be, chair. Don't worry about it. You just, vice chair is just kind of an honorary thing. A year later, I am chair. It's just the way things worked out. But I have thoroughly enjoyed my My time with 4-H, it never ends. And for those of you who are part of 4-H, I just encourage you to remember to keep your relationships renewed. Remember all that you learn. It will open doors. I told somebody this morning, if you want to run for office, it's a great network for raising money. I'm not doing that, but I know a lot of friends who've done it. Just so many cool things. And I look at this picture of me. I won the state junior and senior in horses. It's still the same girl. My hair's different. Lordy, those pigtails. I don't know why mama let me do that. Still that same young girl in the heart. And I think all of you recognize that that's how your life is. But I'm indebted to Georgia 4-H. I would not be who I am without it. Besides my family, besides that instillment I got growing up, it is 4-H. And I know that, and I'm proud to be able to say that. I've had a glorious career. It has been, that's just part of the logos. It doesn't mean I can't keep a job, by the way. I think that there are a lot of logos there. It means that I have been ambitious. I have been aggressive about my career. I have made sacrifices for my career. I have done what it takes to do to be successful as a female in an industry, as I said earlier, probably really didn't want me in a leadership role. I had sharp elbows. I worked extremely hard to be able to do the things I've done. But a lot of people, and I mentioned some of them in a few slides ago, were there to give me the push, the shove, the encouragement to help me do that. Some of them in private sector. I've had a very rich career in private sector. A lot of them in government on Capitol Hill as a staffer for 12 years. Also at USDA. The dean mentioned I was deputy secretary, there's only, at that time, there'd only been 2 women before me. Now we've had 2 more, so yay. We've only had 1 woman secretary in the history of USDA, and President Lincoln formed USDA. It's been around a while. Very honored to be able to serve as deputy secretary. And for those who don't know, it's like the chief operating officer of USDA, 100,000 employees, $153 billion budget when I was there. I don't know what it is quite right now. But wonderful experience. Also as chief of staff to the secretary, an assistant secretary as well. But also my private sector jobs have been rewarding in a whole different way. Harder to work for shareholders and farmers. I learned that. But every step of my career, it's not like I said, I know where I want to end up. I just knew I wanted to do something big. I knew I wanted to do something meaningful. I knew I wanted to make a difference. I knew I wanted to be in food and agriculture. And somehow or another, all these pieces of this puzzle, this complicated puzzle, has kind of fit. There's some common themes, and I'm trying to bring those through. The foundational aspects of my life, my family, all starting on that dirt road and that peanut farm in South Georgia. Coming here to UGA, coming to Athens, building lifelong friendships and connections, having a place to come back to, having a football team to root for in the great years, but there are a lot of years Florida beat Georgia, a lot. I think you might have been there then, so I'm glad you're here now. All the different pieces going to Washington 2 weeks, literally. My daddy moved me up there 2 weeks after our graduation, ready to start a career. Being patient, working on Capitol Hill for 12 years. Going to be the first CEO of the National Association of Conservation Districts. To 78 years, I was the first female. A very short line for the ladies' room. I had a whole executive committee and board that were all men. And then from there, going to USDA with 3 different positions. And when I left there, I went to DuPont. Only worked there for 3 years. I was not quite cut out for corporate life, but I'm honored that I was able to do that as we merged with Dow and formed Corteva. And Secretary Vilsack recruited me when he had the job I have now at US DEC. He recruited me to be his chief operating officer. And when he went back to USDA to be secretary, I got to move up. Just weaving through, not all direct lines, but what a wonderful career I've had and been very blessed. I want to shift gears a little bit about what does all that mean? Am I just talking about myself? Yeah, a little bit. The dean said I could. But the driving force and something has mattered to me, keeping farmers on the land, that's an underlying principle for me, and then feeding people. We heard the quotes from Mr. Brooks, Norman Borlaug I mentioned. It is all about nourishment, and it's not just empty calories. And people who are fed are going to make better decisions. They're going to be happier. They're going to be more stable, and we're less likely to have the wars and the problems we have. When people are fed, the world is safer and more stable. It is frightening to think about all the people who don't have food. It is it's a challenge for all of us, not just those in this room or either. This woman here, I'll just give you just a little bit story on her. She's an Ethiopian dairy farmer I met in my travels a few years ago. She has 7 cows. Her husband actually works for her, which is very, very unusual in Ethiopia. She and I just hit it off. We became great friends. She didn't speak English. I didn't speak Ethiopian, but just something about food, something about growing food, producing food brought us together. She used the manure from her cows for her one light in her house. And her cook stove. That became her little mini digester, was her fuel. And I asked her what she wanted for her son. She had one son. And she did not miss a beat. She just said, I want him to be a modern farmer. I want him to have what your farmers have, the tools they have. I want him to be able to feed not only his family, but other families. That's what she wanted for her child. What a wonderful, gracious thing to say. I want him to be able to feed others. It has stuck with me for many years. That picture is hanging on my wall, and it has been since I met her many years ago, because I just remember how critical it was for her son to have the tools to help others, to feed others. It's not something that one person can do, not even a Norman Borlaug, J.W. Brooks. It takes us all. These are the things that we have to do. We have to tackle these problems together because they are real. And they're not just around the world. Some of the most impoverished, food insecure places in our country are in rural areas. It has broken my heart to think about hungry people in South Georgia when we have the best farmers in the world and the most choices and the most food. But they're neighbors, and you can look past them, you can drive past them, you can blame them, you can ignore them, that are our neighbors. There are kids who only get food at school, who don't eat unless there is a backpack they take home until the day they come back to school. In your communities, in my community. Nothing breaks my heart more to think about that happens in our country, in the richest country in the world, producing the best food and the most food in the world. So much we export. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes because that's what I do. But we still have hungry kids. We have veterans. We have seniors who are food insecure. That's what motivates me to do more and to stay in this field, to know that's not right, and maybe just something that I can do or help lead or talk about will change a mind. I've spent a lot of time around the world talking to farmers, especially women farmers. I have a personal passion for that, I admit it. This one top picture here, I'm reminded when I think about that, I was working for Corteva, DuPont Corteva, and we were going to a women in agriculture meeting, and we saw this lady out in this cornfield and some small kids harvesting the corn by hand. Now, I'm old, but I had still had never seen that. And we had huge combines when I was growing up, and they're even huger today. And I said to our team, let's stop and see what's going on here. These were your little kids. This is not like high school age big men. So we stopped and we started talking to her. She was in Kenya. And she said that her husband had died. And she was so desperate. It was just desperate. That's the only word I know how to use. She said, but I've got to harvest this corn or we won't eat this winter. And I won't be able to keep our, I don't know, half a hectare. And her kids were out there, little kids, trying to do what they could. One little girl was crying, and I went over to her and I said, what's wrong? She wasn't that little, maybe 10, maybe 11. She said, if I don't go to school today, I won't get fed. I won't have food. That's where we get our food, is at school. But I've got to help my ma'am. I've got to help get this corn in. It may rain. So everybody in our entourage got out there. That's me not doing a very good job. There were other people who are cut out of this picture who are a lot more helpful than I was. Help them harvest that corn. Because that's all she had. That is humanity. That's what agriculture is about. That's about feeding and helping people, not just driving on by. And I said to her, to the mother right there, can you send your kids to school to eat and let our people help you this afternoon? And she grabbed me so tight. I won't ever forget it as long as I live. Of all the hugs I've had, that's one that you just don't forget. That's why we're in agriculture. That's why we're in feeding and nourishing people. It's not just fancy titles and fancy degrees and going to big meetings and standing in front of a nice audience. It's about knowing how to help people, knowing how to get to their heart and things that matter. These little kids ran off to school. I never seen kids so happy to go to school. Most of kids are drudging. And our team stayed there. We were late for our meeting. We missed one, we're late for another. I got in trouble, it didn't matter. We helped this lady harvest her corn. I'd never done that in my life. I grew up as a princess. I didn't drive a tractor. I couldn't have done it if we were driving tractors, but I could shuck the corn. I've done that enough. That is about the responsibility that we have as a people, not just as Americans or Georgians, Michigonians. It's as a people. That is the motivation for me to stay in agriculture, is to help feed people. Now I'm going to dig even deeper and talk about dairy, because that's where I'm in place. This is for you. I didn't know anything about dairy. I grew up on a peanut farm. So I started working for dairy, cheese and ice cream are two separate food groups for me, basically. That's what I know about dairy. I like it. I know it's good for you. It's always had this halo. I understand about the nutrition of dairy. But when you look at that pie, if you look at that pie and you see where our population is, even though we're a big, vast country with a lot of people, we're still only about 4% of the world's population. There's a lot of folks out there that need nourishment, cannot feed themselves, who want products from the U.S. And dairy is what Jerry and I do, is one thing that we do. We talk a lot about helping to nourish. We export now from dairy close to 20% of what we produce. My organization was formed by dairy farmers. 29 years ago, we were only exporting 3 or 4% of what we produce. Our farmers with the same number of cows, less land, less water, less emissions, are producing more. That's modern agriculture. That's the investment from the great scientists I know are in this room and those who are studying to be scientists. Make sure we're efficient, we're effective, we're impactful with less resources. That's what we do. This is just more of talking about, really about trying to improve the health, not only of our country, but our trading partners as well. We work very closely. We don't displace farmers when we do trade. We work with their local production, their local producers. We need more farmers in the world, not less. That's something I'm very committed to, is making sure that we work very closely with the folks that we're exporting to, whether it be Mexico, Indonesia, Taiwan, Thailand, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, you name it. We export to 93 countries, working with local producers, local processors to make sure we help lift everyone. We're not going to export fresh milk. They need that produced locally, but we can build the demand for dairy and help folks understand how it is to have in their diet. Very important. That's the global impact part of my speech. But it's not just about being good for the for people. We have a saying in dairy, good for people, good for planet. You have to do both. You can't just be good for people anymore. Our planet needs the care as well. And I spend a lot of time, our organization does, thinking about both, not just providing nourishment. And it's not calories. I said that earlier. It's not just empty calories. It's also nourishment. And with that comes working a lot on the climate. Whether you believe in our role as humans in it or not, it doesn't matter. We know that things are changing. We have to mitigate. We have to adapt. I was at Climate Week in New York in September. I came back Sunday from Azerbaijan. Anybody from Azerbaijan in here? Anybody ever been to Azerbaijan? It's a long way, I'll tell you that. COP29 was happening. It's happening last week and this week. And I left. Ag Day is today, Dean. And I got somebody to cover for me with the secretary because I wanted to be in Athens. And at first, folks thought I'm in Athens, Greece. Like, no, it's Georgia. And then Georgia is a neighboring country of Azerbaijan. So I confused everybody there. They thought I was going to Georgia, that Georgia. I'm like, no, the real Georgia. I'm whatever. I got in a lot of trouble trying to explain it was Athens, Georgia, not Athens, Greece, and not Georgia in the same region. But anyway, I came home Sunday so I could be here today. But a lot of the messaging there is about being good for planet, good for people without trading one or the other. We have to find ways to do it, what we do, in a way that is not harmful, but helpful. And there's a lot of the food system, making sure that farmers are at the table, their voices are heard. That's what I do. Spend a whole lot of time on, is talking about, don't make decisions for farmers. They need the practical input, and these kind of global multinational decision-making bodies have got to include the voice of farmers. I'm very fortunate to have farmer leaders who are willing. One is covering for me today. Our chairwoman from Pennsylvania flew in so I could fly out to be able to talk about this. And the investment, we talk a lot about who's going to pay, who is going to help this. It cannot, the changes, the demands, the needs cannot fall on the back of the farmers. We need partners. We need government. We need private sector. Has to come together so that wise decisions can be made, investments can be made, technologies can be adopted without the farmer only being the person who's expected to do all this. Consumers say they'll pay more if it's produced sustainable. Not quite sure they will. They haven't proven that part yet. They want it, but will they pay more? We got to figure that out. Just more of the same. In this slide, just two great farmers I met in Vietnam. I want to make sure we included them, looking at closing those gaps for farmers, making investments. That is something I think that we have to do on the economic side in agriculture. It's not just about having great science to make sure we have these technologies, we have these innovations, we have these solutions. It's helping figure out who's going to pay and how they're going to be adopted. That's part of I think, our responsibility. I said it before, just making sure we do this together. It takes every single one of us. And for all of you young people who are thinking about your careers and your career paths and what you want to do, I just really do encourage you to think about collaborations. Who's doing it right? What industries, what companies, what government agencies, whatever it might be, that's doing it right. And if they are, be a part of them. If they're not, go there and help change them. Because I promise you, the issues are hard to tackle. They're big. The challenges are magnificent. It's the only way we're going to do better is together. I'm just kind of back to where I started because I've gotten the message. I had like 2 minutes. So thank you, Jerry. Back to that dirt road. For me, I never left. It is the heart and the soul. Everybody has a dirt road in your life. It may not look like mine. It may be a condo building in a high rise. It may be a farm. It may be a house in a neighborhood. Some place where you're grounded, where you know who you are and the people there love you in spite of yourself and in spite of your mistakes. That's what builds leaders. It's when you know that, when that's the start of what you're doing. Jerry, I think this is the one you said, well, they know that's peanuts. They do. I'm going to end with something. When I was in Azerbaijan at COP last week, I had to do an interview with a reporter, and I didn't really want to do it. But I thought, you just kind of have to. You can't just talk to yourself, and you can't always be comfortable. This is my journalism training. You got to stretch yourself and be a little nervous. So I did it knowing our elections had just happened, and it was just not going to be pleasant. The reporter, somebody I know, I figured she'd be fair at least. Her first question to me was, what gives you hope? At a time when we have wars, uncertainty, natural disasters that seem so horrific, when there seems to be days when there's more hate than love. What gives you hope? I sat there just for a minute and questioned myself, and I said, Danielle, do you think you're assuming I have hope, right? She said, I know you, Krista Harden. I know that you do. What gives you hope? And I said, what gives me hope is that our young people are so talented and so gifted and so prepared. They're so ready to fix the things that we have messed up. That's why I am motivated. That's why I'm excited. That's why I continue to work and to give and to travel and to make sacrifices, leaving my sweet husband at home, not being with my mom and my sister, because I know that the students in this audience and their counterparts around this country and around the world now are so ready to lead. They're so ready to make a difference. They're so ready. Bo, they're beyond ready. That's what we say in 4-H. That gives me hope. They give me hope. So all of you who are nurturing and teaching and guiding our young people, bless you. You're helping to prepare them to make the world better. So the list of the problems we have is going to get shorter. It's going to be less harmful. That's why I'm hopeful. So thank you for all the students who are here, and thank you for all of you who are guiding and teaching them so they are ready. Thank you. Thank you, Dean.
So thank you very much. I appreciate that very inspiring talk. We do want to take a few minutes now to take some questions.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I enjoyed that. I'm Bob Kimmeray in the plant pathology department. If you go to Mitchell County, you go to Pelham, and you go to Camilla, and you go to Pebble City, there's still dirt roads.
Yep.
If you go to Fulton County, not so many. If you take the applications, the interest I get emails daily from South Asia, from Southeast Asia, from Africa, from Brazil, every single day, but not so many from American students. How do we as a nation, in your opinion, how do we bring the majority of the people who live in urban areas to understand that agriculture is more than just sunshine and planting seeds? And how do we inspire American students to want to follow in the footsteps of those who have gone before?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's one that we've wrestled with in agriculture probably all of our history. A couple things I will say. We talk to ourselves really good. We're very comfortable. I'm comfortable in front of you because some of you grew up on dirt roads. You understand agriculture. You're part of the Ag and Environmental Sciences school. So this is a warm, embracing audience. The ones that are tough is when I go to non-land grant colleges and go in there and I ask, has anybody ever, did you grow up in a small town or on a farm? And you might get one hand. Duke University. I can name many that I have gone to. Walking into the lion's den sometimes is what we have to do. We have to go where people are and don't expect them to come to us. And I think that's what we've done in agriculture a very, very long time. 4-H helps that. A third of our kids are rural, a third are suburban, and a third are urban. Now, that doesn't mean all the urban kids are learning about farming, but they're learning about all that wonderful stuff that the green and the 4-H motto teaches. That is just one way. But I think we have to find a way to make sure that we are talking in a language that is understood. We talk in our farm language. We talk in our rural language, just like they talk in an urban language. I'm not quite sure we can all understand what they're talking about any more than they understand what we're talking about. It's just a divide that we've accepted that we can't. To spend more time talking to people who disagree with us, who don't understand us, and we have to listen to learn. I learned this working in biotech, where I would listen to be able to say, oh, I got you. I know more than you do. I'm going to tell you what you just made. And my whole time, instead of waiting to think about what is driving what you believe and why you believe it. It takes a lot of work and energy, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to go downtown Atlanta and be in a room where nobody looks like you or talks like you or has a career like you or has any interest in your being there. And saying, yeah, but I want to learn from you. I don't want to teach you every time. I want to learn from you. I want to know what motivates you. Why do you think this way? How can we do differently? This morning when I met with the sorority group of 15 young women, which I could have stayed all day with them. They were just so exciting. A lot of the young women were from rural areas, including the president from my hometown. But there was Alpharetta, there was, Snellville, there was other cities represented there as well. So it is person by person sometimes, but that's really not enough. It's got to be a broader, more committed, more intentional conversation. And we can't start with you're wrong and I'm right, because that's kind of what we've done in agriculture. You don't understand us, but we're right. They're kind of right too, because that's what they know. That's what they were taught. I don't live on a dirt road today. Now that's home in my heart. I live in a high-rise building. My daddy was shot. I would spend all that money, didn't have any dirt. He kept wanting to know where the dirt was. I'm like, well, Dad, we got a, kind of this common area. He never did get it. And he would sit on my balcony and watch the planes land at National. I'm that close to the city. This country girl who loves home, who, that's me in that field. I mean, that's home. But for me to make a difference beyond that town, I got to live there where they are. They are. I got to listen. I got to care. I got to want to grow. And I think agriculture matters so much to more people around the world than it does to us because we are so efficient. We feed so many people and then send food elsewhere, sell food elsewhere. No other country does it like we do. We take it totally for granted, right? That's the problem. People do think their food comes from the grocery, from the drive-through, from the market, not from people like my daddy and mama and many of your parents. It is not easy, but if we don't change and this generation does not do a better job because we've messed it up of listening, building coalitions and collaborations that go beyond traditional lines, the problems will only get worse. I just happen to think they're better at it than we were. Maybe social media helps, maybe a shift in attitude, maybe kids wanting to understand about food and where it comes from, that we didn't. I wish I had all the answers. That's a long non-answer for you, but I know we can do better, and I think our young people will. Their friends, they don't stick just to their friend groups. They're much broader. They speak languages, they travel. I didn't go, leave the country until I was in high school with my sister and I both went on a senior trip. I'm going, Cuba next week will be my 100th country. My sister's never left the country again. That's more typical for somebody from Camilla. We gotta open our eyes and our minds and our hearts and listen to each other and learn from each other. Sorry to get so dramatic.
I think that struck a nerve, didn't it? We have another question back here, Olivia.
Hi everyone, my name is Aisha Aino. I'm a master's student in the Department of Agricultural Leadership and Education and Communication. Thank you so much for this inspiring lecture. The last part was very moving that I had to cry because that's what has given me hope up to this moment. I can say we have almost the same dream and I'm happy to have toured this path. So I want to ask, what has been the most challenging part of your journey and how have you been able to manage it? Because I know you might not be able to solve it.
You look back, you tend to remember all the good and not the bad sometimes. I think that's human nature that protects us from ourselves. But the ongoing travel, challenge has been up, and even today as a CEO, sometimes being female in this industry and wanting to be a leader and wanting and to have the respect I believe I've earned. That still is aggravating, and sometimes I just want to kick some folks in the shins when I feel like I have earned it, but still don't get it. That's probably the overriding still challenge for me. But then it's the life balance. And I think women in particular have that, maybe more than men, maybe not, I'm not sure. But I do know there are expectations for women that we are expected to be the nurturer of the home. We want to be, right? You want to be there. You want to be there for your own kids or your parents or, others in your community. That's something that's inbred in us, it seems. But in the balancing, I travel so much. I'm away from home, sometimes as much as I'm home. So finding that balance, wanting to be part of my community and my church, part of my friendships, part of my family, but yet feeling this pull that I have a gift and I have talent and I should use it to do a greater good too. So how do I'm being very, very honest with you. That's my internal struggle that I deal with probably daily. Guilt. I don't know where guilt comes from, but most of it is self-imposed. So I think it's the personal challenges for me that is what I have dealt with most of my career. Now, there are political struggles trying to get a farm bill done. That'll make you cuss. Trying to get funding for programs deserve funding. It's so aggravating. Trying to get a White House to understand rural programs and important agricultural policy. Those have been very, very political struggles for me, political with a little p, not a capital party struggle, but a little p. Those have been very, very difficult issues for me throughout my career. But the personal ones, all the things I told you that helped me deal with them, I still need today. Second CEO position I've had wonderful, wonderful, wonderful career. I still have those struggles. Maybe that just means I'm human. Thank you for the question, and thank you for being here. Y'all awake?
We have a question down here. Tracy? Regina, anything online? Okay.
Hey, thank you for being here. Mark Smith, I met you a long time ago in my career at Department of Agriculture. So
I remember.
thank you for being here. My question kind of goes to the students entering the world and kind of your perspective. I know often as you're kind of coming in as a student, you don't know where to put your efforts or what problems might need to be solved at that time. So where would you say is perhaps the biggest gap where we need to put more effort into solving something where there's not already something in motion today that's going to fix a lot of the problems you spoke about today?
You know, I think there are a lot of tools at hand that you can use and take advantage of. You know, I think a young person, you know, has to figure out where they find, you know, do you form another organization? Do you create? I remember when the Farmers and Rangers Alliance was formed about 10, 12 years ago, its sole job was to bring all the agricultural groups together to communicate to the non-agricultural community, the food consuming community and groups instead of the production groups. And it made a little bit of headway, but it took a ton of money to advertise on the major networks, a ton of money to have a very robust online campaign. So people just, you know, it started out very enthusiastic and then it just kind of slid. So starting something new, I don't know. I do think that better using social media is something that we've got to do, and our young people know how to do that, how to be influencers. I tell a lot of the women in agriculture that I work with, they're great messengers because women network. We listen to each other. If you need a new haircut or a dentist or a new dress, I go ask my friends, my other women friends, right? If I, you know, I have a problem, I talk to my sister or my mother or, you know, Ainsley or her mother or whoever. We just talk to each other. So using what we have, what you're comfortable with, making sure that you're bold and brave in those communication efforts, I think is something we've got to do a better job of. And again, it's going places where you're not comfortable. Volunteering somewhere to, you know, work with kids in need or, and, you know, that may actually not have, you know, the support that they need. There's so many different ways that we can give and we can do. I am a firm believer in public service. I believe people should run for office. I believe we need more young people running for office. I was challenging some of them today to do that. It doesn't mean you have to run for president or Senate or for Congress. You can run for local, you know, school board. You can run for dog catcher, you know, whatever. Getting involved in your community beyond your comfort zone. It starts one community at a time. It really, really does. You're not going to solve all the big problems at the highest level. It always should ladder up. That's what our country is built on. So everybody who says, I can't, I just don't listen. Just tell me you don't want to. That's okay. Just admit you don't want to. Don't say, I don't have time. I'm not good at it. I'm not smart enough. I don't know how. Just tell me you don't want to. Because most of us, if you care enough and you really want it, you find a way to afford it and you find the time to do it. I think that's the challenge we have to do. Or just say, I really don't want to. I just really don't. Don't tell me you can't.
Okay, thank you. One last question over here, bro. Right here, Olivia. Down the front.
My name is Brahm Verma. I'm a retired professor from the College of Ag and Environmental Sciences. Thank you for your presentation and sharing your story. I want to make a comment and see if you have some thoughts about that. My comment is that agriculture in the future time should be also considering as an industry that contributes to those aspects that can overcome issues related with climate change. Just this last week, CAST has produced a report on potential for U.S. agriculture to be greenhouse gas negative. It just came from COP29. I'm sure at COP29 there was discussion about circular bioeconomy systems. I would think that the comment earlier made about the divide between the agriculture community and the other parts that may not be as familiar with agriculture, I think we should begin to think of we rather than them. In this context, I would say that perhaps agriculture, we should really take this challenge to invite the young people to join us in addressing those critical issues that you just raised. So just a comment and any response that you might have for that. Thank you.
Well, I agree that agriculture is part of the solution. And I think that we are doing that. When I joined the dairy industry, it was to lead the setting of the global environmental goals, which include GHG neutrality by 2050, less water, maximizing water use. And we're already on the road to that, and investing in technologies and innovations, and speaking just to the dairy industry, so what I know best right now. But it's a tough journey. There is no silver bullet. Maybe that's not the right politically correct thing to say, but there is no easy answer to getting to GHG neutral in agriculture. That doesn't mean that we can, it doesn't mean that we won't, but it is a journey that does need innovation and technology and investment outside of, again, it can't be on the backs of farmers. So I think what I have found at this COP, and this was my third or fourth, I guess it's my fourth and third in this job, is there is more awareness and more understanding that we've got to do this together, that we cannot just blame agriculture, that we can be part of the solution. We store carbon in the soil. We are very efficient and productive. We don't have to destroy rainforest or pasture land or whatever it might be to be able to produce enough nourishment for the world. We've got to be able to do that and prove that we can do that. But again, it's not easy. I mean, this is very tough, and you're asking farmers to change their farm practice, maybe what they grow, how they grow it, when they grow it, around the world, not just in the US. We do a better job here. I mean, dairy, just for instance, in North America, FAO, which is the Food and Ag Organization by the UN, has said that dairy or animal agriculture, dairy produces 2.2% of all the greenhouse gases in North America. And that is why we're increasing production, we're lowering greenhouse gases and water and land use. So being efficient, having to demonstrate that we are, but to get to that next hurdle where we're zero or net zero, it's going to take a ton of investment and involvement from folks within agriculture for sure, but also the collaboration and the investment of dollars from other communities. So the answers are not easy. We can get there. I believe that with my whole heart, but it's tougher. But I will say the next COP 30 is in Brazil with the focus on agriculture and on animal agriculture specifically. So, but we'll see how those dialogues go. But you have to be at the table. You have to be there. You have to, force the discussion to say, don't just blame agriculture. Don't blame farmers. They need to be at the table. They need to be involved in finding the solutions and how this is going to work. All righty. I could keep talking. You know that.
So, Krista, thank you very much for that thought-provoking talk that you provided here this afternoon. And as a gift to present to you, this is a box of a whole bunch of Georgia-grown products to remind you of home, maybe remind you of that dirt road that you talked about a number of times. And you can pull out what you want. The rest will ship to you.
Okay.
So I want to present this to you and thank you again for a wonderful presentation this afternoon and doing D.W. Brooks so very proud.
Well,
Thank
it's,
you very much.
it was an honor. I'm humbled. Thank you. Beautiful. A lot of cool stuff. He didn't say anything about sharing.
I'll leave that up to you. So
Thank you, Dean.
this is always a very special day for us in the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, a day where we take a step back to reflect on all the excellent work we do as a college and to gain inspiration from our guest speaker for ongoing and future initiatives. Congratulations again to all of D.W. Brooks award winners. Thank you to each and every one of you for joining us here this afternoon. Thank you. Great day. Go Dog.